Welcome to the September webinar sponsored by the 311 Synergy Group and our research partner, ICMA. Our topic today is 311 call centers and CRM. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about the 311 Synergy Group before we get started. It is an industry networking group. We get together once a year at an annual meeting for information sharing. We educate, network with each other. We have a little bit of fun. But we also have activities such as this webinar throughout the year, in addition to discussion groups at our LinkedIn site, which I'll talk about in just a minute. The 311 Synergy Group is open to all municipalities with an interest in 311. And we have over 160 members on LinkedIn right now and an even greater number on our distribution list that we use to inform all of you about things such as this webinar. We're happy to have the 40 registered participants with us today. And I'd like to introduce our 2013 chairperson, Andy Maimoni, who will also be one of the panelists, and our vice chair, Esther Tannenbaum, who is also responsible for putting together these webinars. We are going to have an annual meeting in April this year in Tampa. Esther is our planning committee chair, and she'd love to hear from you about your interest in participating on panels, making a presentation, or even proposing a topic that we might use. Our planning is well underway, and we'd love to hear from you about any interest that you might have. It'll be 2.5 days along with a call center tour that we're firming up right now, but the information about the call center tour will be very exciting once we're able to release the details. Our next webinar is October 31st. All of you Halloween folks out there will have to break away from your costuming to join us to participate in the next webinar, and that topic will be one that Corey Fleming from ICMA and me will be presenting at the ICMA conference in October. And the focus of that webinar is going to be on centralized customer service and 311 systems, but it differs from the webinar today in that we're not having a great focus on CRM. It's more the centralized customer service, whether you use 311 or some other centralized 7-digit, 10-digit dialing number, what it means for your organization and how you can enable it. So I welcome you to join us next month as well. I'd also like to mention that we do have a healthy discussion opportunity at LinkedIn. If you go to LinkedIn and you type in 311 Synergy Group, you can participate with us if you are a 311 leader or person that is interested in 311. So moving on, I'd like to introduce our panelists today. Rob Klatchuk from the City of Edmonton, Andy Maimoni from the City of San Francisco, Renee Troud from the City of Sacramento, Esther Tannenbaum, who will be facilitating this webinar from the City of Albuquerque, and I'm Rose Minton from Heights Consulting. I provide consulting support for the 311 Synergy Group, and I'll be participating as a panelist today as well. So welcome again. If you have questions during the webinar, if you type those in the bottom right-hand side in your question and answer panel, then we'll answer those questions at the end of our discussion today. So I'd like to turn this over to Esther.
Thank you, Rose. I would like to welcome everybody to our webinar, and I want to do a special thank you to our panelists for joining us today to share their background and knowledge or experiences as it relates to CRM solutions. So thank you to everybody again. I know we're going to have a lot of people who either have a CRM solution and are looking to upgrade their solutions, and we have some that are actually I'm sorry, I did not advance the slides right. Okay, and we're going to have some participants also that don't have a solution yet, and they're looking to see what options there are. So this is going to be a roundtable type discussion to try and give everybody a little bit of information about what systems are currently being used at the different cities, what the good parts are, what the bad parts are, any ideas of what they can share with you. So we'll go through and have the panelists kind of talk to some of these points. So bottom line is, how do you choose? So how do you know what to look for in a CRM solution? Where do you even start? Who do you get to talk to? And what are all your options? Those are the things that come to my mind as I'm thinking about upgrading ours, is where do I even begin? So I thought this might be a good topic for those other municipalities that are either looking to start with a CRM solution or have one and want to upgrade or change. So our first panelist is Rose Minton. So Rose, if you could talk a little bit about some key activities for CRM selection.
Thank you, Esther. I wanted to start by talking about the complexity of deciding what it is that you really want when you speak about CRM. If any of you have bought a car lately, you know that there's different brands, different options, different prices. You know that one size does not fit all. And that's the same with the CRM. Evaluating and selecting, again, is not easy. But I'm focusing on the front end of that evaluation and selection because you'll hear different approaches from the panelists. Some of the panelists have already, they had existing technology such as Oracle or SAP, and it was the decision of their city just to leverage that existing technology and use a CRM from Oracle or SAP because they already had that suite in-house. Others are going to talk about how they want to spend the most dollars, not that they want to spend the most dollars, but they're making a very strategic decision about the CRM. It is a lot of money, but it's the most strategic tool that you'll have in centralized customer service. And some of our panelists had cities that took the approach that, yes, it is going to be an investment, excuse me, but we are going to make that investment up front because it is a very important strategic tool. Then you have other cities that have said, you know, on the front end, I'm not going to purchase something very robust. I'm going to get something that is less dollars, something that is an interim solution, something that doesn't handle service requests quite as well as the more robust solutions. And then after we do centralized customer service, 311, and we've done it for a while, we'll make that strategic investment. So all of these examples serve to show you that not every city is on the same page, and you'd be surprised to know, I'm sure, that in your own city, not everybody's going to be on the same page about the direction you should take as it regards CRM. So the first step that I recommend is that you define your project objectives and your expectations, not only the expectations of the selection team, but those that are ultimately going to have to approve that selection, because that will save you so much time on the back end if you understand up front the direction that you're heading. Once you've defined that direction, then you define those requirements. Do you need it to do service requests that you can send to the field, escalate if the work is not done, track so that you have performance statistics? Do you need a knowledge base so that your customer service reps will have at their fingertips the answers to the questions that come in to centralized customer service? Or are you not going to go with those robust functions and you're going to do something less? All of that will go into your requirements definition that you need to get nailed down within your own organization before you then go out to the marketplace with your request for proposal, developing that, distributing it, have the vendors come back in with their solutions. And then from there you have a series of steps that you'll go through: shortlisting, doing demonstrations, doing reference checking, maybe even going on site to see the system working at a location, and finally coming to a conclusion about the CRM that you want to go forward with, doing some verification and due diligence around that functionality, technology, pricing, and finally into your contract signing, the statement of work and the contract itself. So this is a very high-level overview of some of the maybe close to 600 or 800 tasks that you'll do to get to a final signed contract and an implemented CRM solution. But again, I wanted to focus on the front end because one size does not fit all, and you have to understand your expectations with regards to functionality, price, implementation, strategy before you kick off the evaluation and selection process. So, Esther, I'll take it back to you.
Thank you, Rose. I appreciate that information. And it is true, one size doesn't fit all. And I think for anybody who's starting up, as you grow and mature as a center, some of those objectives may change as well. So your needs might be quite different. So we're going to go to the panelists now and talk a little bit about some questions that I had sent them to talk to about their CRM. So I'm going to start with Rob from the City of Edmonton. Rob, can you tell us about how many calls your center handles on a daily basis?
Yeah, thanks, Esther. We handle about 2 million calls annually and between 5,000 and 8,000 calls daily.
Wow.
Our city is the size of about 812,000 people with a metro area of about 1.1 million. And we have about 150 staff members between support, agents, and leadership team.
Great. And as far as your staff, Rob, are they all full-time, or do you have a blend of full-time, part-time?
We have a blend of full-time, part-time, and we have about 60% full-time, 40% part-time.
Thank you. And now on to Andy from the City of San Francisco.
Hi, Esther. Thanks. So San Francisco, so we're about the same size as Edmonton, about 800,000 residents, which grow to about 1.2 million during the day with all of the people coming into work in the city. We are a city and county operation, which is different than many. We do have about 80 staff. We have almost all of them are full-time. We only have about 5 as-needed staff. We have 64 full-time customer service reps and 6 supervisors, and then about 13 administrative staff on top of that. We handle about 5,000 calls a day, answered almost 14 million calls since we launched.
Awesome. Thank you, Andy. I appreciate that. And Renee with City of Sacramento.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We are I guess, the small member of the group. We are a population of about 460,000. The City of Sacramento call center handles strictly City of Sacramento calls. We have 22 agents currently and 2 administrative staff. So we are a lean and mean operation. We handle about 1,000 calls a day, roughly 400,000 annually.
Great, thank you. And so all of yours are full-time then?
Yes, actually we
okay.
just implemented a couple of part-time, half-time positions, but for the most part we have, up to at this point, we have been entirely full-time.
Great, thank you. Rob, I'm going to go back to you. What kind of software do you have in Edmonton?
So we use SAP and their CRM product, and we selected that based on we did a bit of a review, but that was our enterprise system, and we also, a number of our client areas used the plant maintenance, and that's how they dispatch their work into the field forces. So we went along with that same tool.
Great. And do you create service requests then, or you just do? How do you do that? Well, let me rephrase that. So do you create a ticket in SAP for every call you take, or just for the calls for service?
We take them for all calls, and we do that for the 12% of our tickets are for service requests that go on to the other business areas for them to complete. Okay. And 88% are for services that 311 agents complete from end to end.
Okay, great. And, you know, one of the things I'll go back and ask, and this was just asked by one of our participants, was what are your hours? Are you 24/7, 365, or what are your hours there?
We are 7 by 24, 365. Okay,
great. And did you use the RFP process, or how did you pick SAP?
So it was an enterprise system that we already had, so we just added a module for us to be able to do the CRM portion. So we didn't do a formal RFP for the rest of the to add that section because we had already fixed SAP as an enterprise system.
So you just got to inherit what was there.
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you. Andy, so do you create a ticket for each of your calls or just for your calls for service?
So we don't create a ticket for every single call, but every single call is tracked in our CRM. So we start an interaction so that we can report out as to the percentage of calls that were informational or how many wound up being a service request. As Rob said, we've got about 7 or 8% that wind up being a service request that go on to another agency. The remainder are either informational calls that we can handle through M1 or something we can handle based on department information they've already provided to us.
And so what software do you use in San Francisco?
We use the Lagan Technologies solution.
Okay. So when you say you track all other calls, is that you track it within Lagan, or you track it in other means?
No, we track them in Lagan. So Lagan has one of its components is a script flow. So we just start with taking in the call, and then you go through the process of is it a request for information or a request for service, and then you kind of branch into the different areas. But every call is tracked so we can report on all the interactions performed.
So on those that are tracked because they're FAQs, do you know what kind of FAQ they are, or is it just generally says it's just an FAQ?
So the Lagan application itself knows that it's an FAQ, and then we go into the knowledge base itself, and the knowledge base can tell us what we were asking it and what answer we provided out.
Okay,
so
great.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that you used the RFP process before you got Lagan on board. Would that be a correct assumption?
That is correct. It was back in 2006, so I was not around then.
Okay.
And when we get to some of those questions, I will have opinions, but yeah, so 2006 it was a competitive RFP, and Lagan was selected.
Okay. And so what was the reason that you selected Lagan?
That I can't tell you. I
Okay.
haven't ever dug in that
Okay.
far. When I
No problem.
showed up, we'd already had it implemented.
Okay. And thank you, Andy. And on to Renee. Renee, so how many calls you told us how many calls. So do you create a ticket for each call or just for calls for service?
We log every call that we receive, including hang-ups and dead air. So every phone call translates to a service request. And about 60% of our calls are service. Our CRM system that we have chosen is Oracle CRM or Oracle Siebel CRM, and our system, in addition to the Oracle system, we use 7 other software applications, one of which we have an integration to, the others we do not. But so each of our calls either it starts as a service request in Siebel and then either ends there if it's just an information call, or if it's a request for service, then is also entered in one of the legacy systems that we inherited. So we do a fair amount of work.
So the legacy systems would be for your various divisions or departments to get the work orders,
yes,
per se, out to them.
Right.
Okay.
And Siebel was chosen. We did go do a competitive RFP process, and we had 3 responses to that RFP. We went live with our system in 2008. Fortunately, it just kind of coincidentally, our central IT department was purchasing a new accounting software system at the time, which was a PeopleSoft or Oracle PeopleSoft product. So we were able to get this Oracle Siebel at a significantly discounted price. But it was actually the product that had been chosen even prior to the awareness of a discount.
Okay. So you would have chosen it even if there wasn't a financial system that your city was looking at to begin with? Okay.
It had
okay. And so you had said that 60% of your calls are for service. Is that where action needs to take place on behalf of the city?
Yes.
And so
go ahead, excuse me.
That's okay, go ahead.
We handle every service type in the city of Sacramento. We handle code enforcement, all solid waste issues, animal care issues, internal building maintenance issues, street lighting, street signals, street repairs. Okay. Every work group goes through the Sacramento call center.
Great. Thank you, Renee. Well, I know that we've gotten some other questions, and I'll run through one of them very quickly right now, and we'll pick up some of them as we go along. This one came from Stacy Palmer. What type of telephony platform do you have, and is it integrated with your CRM? So I'll start with Rob.
We use Cisco Express. And
Cisco Express?
Yeah, and it really isn't integrated in, no.
Okay, thank you. And Andy?
Hi, we use Avaya, and it is not integrated per se. We do have an automated call routing system so that the calls are presented to the customer service reps automatically. They don't have to manually select them on the phone. And they are tied in with Blue Pumpkin workforce tracking and nice call recording. We'll talk more about that later on.
Okay.
But there is not a screen pop. There's no CTI into the application itself.
Okay, thank you. And Renee?
Ours is similar. We are using Cisco, and we are the two systems are not integrated. Calls are distributed, so it's not, the agents are not having to select a line, but they are not. There's no connection between Siebel and the Cisco system.
Okay, great. And then I'm going to also ask the panelists for our next question that came through, and that is, do you have a process to receive? And this is from Luke Richard. Do you have a process to receive electronic requests? If so, how are requests for service or questions handled, and are they tracked similar to phone calls? So, Rob, if you'll respond to that.
So anything that comes in electronically via email, we track through our CRM just as if it was a phone call.
Okay, great. And Andy?
We take electronic requests a couple different ways. We do not handle requests via email, but we'll take them via Twitter. And in the case of a Twitter request, we'll take that. It's handled similar to a telephone call. We also have a very well-developed self-service portal where almost everything you can do in the customer service center can be done online. And we've got about 25% of our service requests coming in via the web as opposed to being handled by a customer service rep. And then we also interact with a service called Open 311, which is an open standard that can be adopted by anyone. It's an open standard that was developed through a number of cities, and we take requests that way. They get handled through smartphones and web applications as well.
Great, thank you. Renee?
We do handle electronic calls. We have, since our inception, have handled emails, and those are logged in the same way that that a phone call would be logged. We do identify them as an email transaction, but they are entered into the system in whatever way is appropriate based on the transaction. And we just launched an iPhone app and a web application about 3 weeks ago that allow transactions to be sent to us through those devices, and those two systems are fully integrated with our Siebel system, so it doesn't require any additional data entry. So we're just starting to see that pick up. We're not it's not heavily advertised yet, but we're starting to see more and more calls coming in through the electronic means, which is great, because anything coming in from an email requires much more time, as anyone will say. You've got to read the text and identify what the issue is, and in some cases communicate back and forth with the user. So the automated systems work much better.
Great. And what vendor did you select to go with your apps for your smartphones? It
just is a small business by the name of Graviton.
Okay.
And they did an excellent job.
Great. Okay, and I'm going to answer this last question, then we'll move on to the other slides. We just got one from Stacy Palmer. Do you have chat capability? Rob, do you guys have chat capability?
We do not.
Okay.
And it's not something we're looking at this time.
Okay. Andy?
We don't. We've looked at it in the past, but we just haven't gone that way. It doesn't seem very efficient.
Okay. Renee?
No, don't have it either.
Okay, I'll share my experience with that. When we opened here, we had chat capability. It just is not really an effective way to deal with 311. We ended up turning it off because what happened was people were using it at first, then stopped using it, and you were going back and forth with chats. And then what we saw was we were getting the Lonesome Heart Club in the middle of the night chatting, and that really wasn't the purpose of the chat. So, and we've not gotten any complaints, and we've not had it for at least 5 years. So I think technology has probably changed that in our industry a lot. Were there other means to communicate with us? So we'll move on to some other questions. Panelists, I'm going to go through these questions and go around just like we have. So, Rob, does your SAP system have a knowledge base feature?
It does, but we've chosen to go with a standalone software that we use, and it's a system called Trinicom that was recently acquired by Cana, and it's where we load all of our scripts, and it links into our website, and it kind of directs the agents on how to handle all the different calls that we take.
Great. So you don't use the one that came with the product, but you created a subsystem for a knowledge base.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. Andy.
So we do have a knowledge base. It is, we actually just upgraded our knowledge base. We were using the knowledge-powered solutions app that was in the older Lagan application. We just upgraded to the one that is the Cana, application itself.
And Cana is the Lagan, correct?
Cana is, Cana and Lagan.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's interesting they also have the one that that Rob just mentioned, the Trinicom.
Okay. Great. Renee.
We do have a knowledge base. Oracle Siebel does have a knowledge base, although we have not found that it has worked well for us because I think largely because of the wide array of call types that we handle, it was just extremely difficult to identify or to create scripts because a call can go so many different directions for us. And that's actually something that I'm working on getting back in to see, we've got this tool just to see if we can, what we can do to make it work better for us than it currently does. But it was one of the reasons that we chose this product because it did have a robust system, but we just haven't managed to get it to do what we thought it would do.
Yeah, and I'm going to add a little bit here from Albuquerque about knowledge base. We too bought a product. We have the PeopleSoft through Oracle that had potentially a robust knowledge base, but we found that it was a lot more work to maintain a knowledge base than it was to keep our website updated, and the departments were really struggling with that. So we put more emphasis on assisting the departments in getting all their information on the web so that citizens can get their answers and we can get our answers, and it's one consistent place. And so we have moved away from a knowledge base about 6 years ago, maybe 6.5 years ago, and strictly use what our web has on it, which has encouraged the departments to keep that content current. And we didn't have to maintain the content in a knowledge base any differently.
Yeah, Esther, it's interesting. What we're doing is we just actually went with a new product to one that actually goes out and searches and indexes, the city websites. So we are trying to kind of what you're doing, but it allows us to have a mixture of FAQs and indexing, the city web pages. So for the real common items, we can have an FAQ that provides a specific answer, and then we have the advantage of being able to search the web and find stuff that we couldn't have found ordinarily, or not ordinarily, but previously.
And that's a good point, Andy, because that's what we saw is that our knowledge base was spidering our web. So we were getting results back, but what happened with the FAQs, and maybe systems, I'm sure they've come a lot longer way since we started with it, is the FAQs, if the department information on the web changed, the FAQ database did not change in the knowledge base because the department wasn't maintaining both. We could be giving out inconsistent information, and it happened way too much. So that's why we even went away from it, even from a FAQ standpoint, because it was hard to get the departments to understand they had to update a web and get us information for the FAQs. So do you guys maintain the knowledge base, or do you rely on the departments for the FAQ?
We maintain our own knowledge base based on information from the departments, but what we've done is before we did this upgrade to the new application, we tried to maintain about 6,000 FAQs, and now what we're doing is we're taking the top 100 call types or 100 questions or so and focusing on really making sure that those answers are clear, concise, and correct. Of course, we want all the answers to be correct, but we're counting on the web spidering and indexing to provide the fringe questions. But for some of the more complex questions that may have more than one website with relevant information, we try and condense all that to make it easier for the customer service rep and then faster for the caller on the phone.
Right. Okay, thank you. So now I want to talk a little bit about the overall CRM system that you've selected. What are some of the features that you like the most, and what are some of the features you like the least? And if you had a wish list for your software that it could do for you but it does not, what are those items? So we're going to go through those questions, and Rob, if you'll start us off with those.
Well, and I think I need to probably say the tool does a lot more than we've implemented. And
okay.
we implemented in 2008, and you really, going back to some of the stuff that Rose said, is you really don't know what you're doing until you're in it. And
right.
we kind of amalgamated 19 call centers, 30 business areas are involved, and we're probably more in a stage to really understand. We're in the process of doing an upgrade to the next version within the SAP product. And I think we're in a lot better place to actually take it where we want. It works. It gets the tickets to the areas we need. We get some good reporting on all the different, the call types that we take and whatnot. So I'd say it works, and it did meet the business needs. I think we're now looking at how can we make it a bit better through our, evolution with the upgrade. So I would say that's more on our governance of how we've chosen to use the product than the product itself.
Okay. So what are the features you like the most that are functioning at this point?
I think it's, as I said, we have 2 million calls. We have probably about 800 different call types that we track through the system. And they route in all kinds of different areas, and they're organized and whatnot. So, I mean, that's a lot of configuration that we do, and it gets that. What I like least isn't really about the product, is we still have to build some of those integrations.
Right.
We have some, there isn't an end-all, be-all system, and when we re-engineered the processes to bring it all in within our 311 area, we didn't re-engineer all of the processes, so we have to do some of them, I wouldn't say manually, but in duplicate.
Right.
But I would say that we're 4 years later, we've got the businesses on board. This is a huge change management effort to put in a 311. So the CRM is really important, but I would say the business process is way more important.
Right. I would agree with that. So I know you said you're learning about the things that you can enhance with your software because it has a lot of capabilities that you haven't activated or chosen to use yet. So what do you wish that it could do for you that you don't have now, the things you see that you can have or that you wish you had?
Well, one of the things we're in the process of evaluating, we're a little bit behind on the whole iPhone or mobile apps.
Okay.
And we're working, with the new upgrade. That capability should be there. So that's one of the things that being said, it isn't, a significant portion of our call types either. So, but it is something that we're really looking for it to do.
Great. Thank you, Rob. Andy, so what are some of the features you like the most about Lagan?
I think one of the things I like the most about Lagan is it has it has a good overall management process, which means that it has both scripting to start the call in and direct the call as it goes through the appropriate step, whether it's information, whether it's knowledge. It has a GIS feature, which means it has a mapping tool, and it lets us help in two ways. One of them, it lets us really define where that problem is and kind of look on our map with the customer and say, yeah, that's where the problem is. And it lets us see if there's already a request out there, so we don't take duplicate requests, which our departments, don't like duplicate requests. It does have the embedded knowledge that we've just upgraded, and we're still working through making sure we know how that works. And then it has a fairly good electronic form capability. So I think that's what I would say I like best about the application is it has all of the features built into one tool.
Great. So what do you like the least?
I think what we're having trouble with, I think, is finding all the different configuration items. Because it is a complex application, it's where do you turn things on, where do you turn things off? Can we get some more rules around who do we notify? Can we send an email to a customer about different products or projects that are going on? Some of the electronic forms kind of look a little bit aged. That may be something we just need to do. Like Rob said, there's so many things going on in maintaining the application and trying to bring in new services that it's hard to go back and modernize and look at all the things going on. So we are always trying to work on learning more about what the product does. We just went through an application upgrade. So while we were fairly confident in our abilities to tweak and expand the previous version, now we've got a whole new version that we're trying to understand the functionalities and features in. So that's just kind of complicated configuration and looking for some more flexibility.
Okay. So I'm going to guess that part of your wish list would be the things that you would like that you don't have is to make that a little bit easier for you.
Yeah, I think more that the business analyst could do, maybe in a real simple web interface, as opposed to having to go into files, places on servers and stuff like that.
Okay. Anything else that you wished it could do for you that it doesn't?
I think, and this may tie in with knowledge and something we're going to be working into, but more advanced scripting maybe in a form process. So as you're going through a form and you're taking questions from the caller, that it can intelligently go, oh, well, you answered this question that way, so therefore these following questions are now needed instead of these two other ones. So kind of maybe more intelligent forms.
Okay, great. Renee, what are some of the features you like the most about your system?
We like SIBO very well. It's a very robust system. We've been able to modify it a number of times to add a couple of integrations with some of the applications that we're using, and also it's been used to create. We have a couple of specialized processes that don't actually equate to an application. But for example, we have when our drains crews goes into rain patrol, there used to be a little in-house software piece that was written, and now we can use Siebel to do that. So it's a different screen that we've been able to design. It's still the customer service agents enter calls in the same way, but they can be viewed on the back side a little bit differently. So that the flexibility has been great. I think, as Rob was pointing out, up front you spend so much time. Obviously you do as much research as you can to get a product that meets as many of the needs as you think you have, but creating the 311 system as a whole is so much of a process that you really don't know until you've got all the departments in place and the call centers consolidated, what is it you really are going to need. So
right.
I think much of it for us is really, I think the application that we have can do everything that we would want it to do. We don't have the staff to make that happen. We're just extremely small, extremely short-staffed. But I think that the product itself is very robust, and the flexibility, I would say, is a big piece of that. And the reliability, it's really, it doesn't do strange things. It does what it's supposed to do consistently. There's no glitches. Some of the things that we have had challenges with is, maybe perhaps one of the largest is the lack of integration with the other applications that we work with. We don't. Not only do we have to go to those other systems, which I understand other call centers do as well, but we don't get the closed loop. We are not notified when a body of work is done or when a service request is done. So when it comes time to report, I can report on how many service requests of any number of types were created, but I have no way to know if they got done, how long it took them to be completed. So the reporting that we're able to generate from the call center is weak. I mean,
okay.
We can see the volume of what's coming in, but as far as efficiencies, as far as our city management is concerned, it's a little bit it's lacking, and that's something hopefully we can integrate that or get that going. Some of the things that we would wish for would be that an integration and also better reporting. I'm sure it's in the system somewhere, but our current reporting is pretty mundane. So the ability to create some more sophisticated reports and even to report on, to have some more visual displays of the data, some analytics that we can show. You know, the reports that we generate are, you know, kind of your basic spreadsheet-looking things, and it's an awful lot of data without a lot of, you know, focus on any particular piece of it. So if we could do more graphing, more, you know, having things be a little more user-friendly, that would go a long way, I think, to making our data useful.
Great.
Or more useful.
Great. So, you know, I forgot to ask you and Andy, what are your hours of operation in Sacramento?
We are 24/7.
You are 24/7. Andy, what are your hours?
Yeah, we are too. We're 24/7.
Okay. All right. So as far as the cost to maintain your system, what are your annual costs for whether it be licenses or maintenance contracts or any costs associated with the current CRM system that you use? And Rob, we'll start with you.
That isn't shared with, that cost isn't passed down because it's part of the enterprise financials for us, so, or for the city, so I don't know.
Okay. Andy.
Yeah, our costs are, you know, bordering on about 11 million this year. It's interesting. So as a breakdown of that, about 83% of that number is salary and fringe. So when you look at the cost, it really is the cost of having the people that are going to staff and answer the questions. We have about 500,000 that's going to software maintenance and upgrades. So last year we did upgrades to our application. To go back to what Rob and Renee were talking about, is we actually do have a fairly complete reporting and integration service that you know, works well through the Lagan service. So we pass requests electronically to Public Works, Public Utilities, and our housing authority. And we do have a closed loop process. So when we do send requests to them, we do get those requests back. One of the things in our budget for this year is to upgrade our integration engine. So that's just kind of one of the ongoing costs. And then we pay about, you know, 600,000 or about 5% in rent. And so that's kind of where our budget breaks out to.
So just to maintain your system, are you at about 500,000 a year? Is that what you're saying for Lagan?
So software maintenance for all enterprise applications is about 20% of your list price. And that's the same thing for us. So software maintenance is a portion of that, you know, services number. And so it just depends on how much software you have, and you'll typically spend about 20% of your purchase price on maintenance.
Okay, thank you. Renee.
Yeah, I don't have the maintenance costs for our system.
Okay.
Our overall budget is only about, we're less than $2 million for our entire call center's budget.
Wow, okay, great, thank you. So as far as training your agents, I'm looking at not just on your software, but overall training before they're able to take calls comfortably on their own. So that's the kind of information I'm looking to share here. And we'll start with you, Rob. How long is your training program in Edmonton?
So we do it in three sections, and it's a total of 7 weeks. We're able to do that because we have a high number of calls. We do the transit information calls for our city, and that is about 50% of our volume. And so we do that in the first module, and then we do recreation and program admin, and then we do all the rest of the services. And it takes about 7 weeks, which includes shadowing time and kind of in our incubation area or coaching area. So it's a 7-week total, but it's not done concurrently.
Okay. So over what time frame is that spread? Is that over a 6-month time frame, or?
We do it based on, it'd be about 6 months. That would be our goal. 6 months to a year, depending on, you know, how many people we have and that kind of stuff.
Okay, great. Andy, how about your training program for your agents?
Ours is somewhat similar to Rob's. What we do is we have the formal training process is 8 weeks, and the first 2 to 3 weeks are spent on, you know, familiarity with the system and the ability to handle transit-related telephone calls. So once the trainees go successfully through that, then we put them onto a split shift where They actually answer calls during the morning and afternoon commute period to help our service levels with that. And then between those two, in the middle of the day, they come back into a classroom session. So the total classroom session is about 8 weeks. They do on-job training, and that winds up being about a total of 4 months. So our goal is to get someone trained in a 4-month period.
Okay, great. Thank you. And Renee?
That's interesting. We spend about 6 weeks training our staff, and it's straight through to 6 weeks, start to finish, and then they and during that time they're obviously listening in on calls in the call center, and towards the end of that they're partnering with an active call center agent. So one of them takes calls while the other one one's doing the phone, one's doing the computers. But we don't have a way to segregate call types. So essentially an agent needs to be able to handle any call before they can actively take calls.
Okay, great. All right. And then one of the other questions is, what other programs does your CRM system integrate with? I know we talked about the phones, but do you have Screen Scrape? Do you have POPs? What does it integrate with? And we'll start with Rob.
So it doesn't integrate with. We don't have CTI or anything, but our call recording, which we use Calabrio, and it does screen scrapes for that program, so
okay.
We use it for that.
Thank you. Andy?
So we do not have a CTI, so no screen pops, although through our telephony system, the agents will see on their soft phone information about which line they came in on. If they came in on a specific program phone line, they can see that. The system integrates with NICE for call recording. We don't do any screen scraping. And then I said we also have Blue Pumpkin for workforce scheduling. And we have a pretty complex set of reports available, although for the most part they're still just tabular data, like what Renee was talking about, is we don't have a lot of visual, mostly kind of spreadsheet, and percents and numbers.
Okay, great. Thank you, Andy. And Renee?
We integrate, our Siebel system integrates with one of the applications, actually just recently a second as part of our mobile application. A second integration was created, so we're just getting that up. So at this point we integrate with 2 of our legacy applications, but that's it. We don't have a CTI, and we don't do screen scrapes as well.
Okay, great. And we have a couple of questions from Stacy Palmer, so I'm going to ask this of the panelists. So one of them is regarding costs. Were there additional hires needed, such as analysts or programmers in either the enterprise or department level? Rob, if you can answer that for us.
That's a tough one, because we really never had a great idea of how many people did various things pre and post.
Okay.
So we don't, but I would say what we do have that we've needed is we do have a group that kind of manages our knowledge base, a trainer, and we have an agent that manages the scripts and works with the departments. And then we do have an analyst that does a lot of our reporting and whatnot. But that's, I've worked in other industries. We don't have anything more than what I would have if I worked for a different company.
Okay, great. Andy?
So we have 4 business analysts and a programmer that work inside of 3M1 that do most of the business process analysis and reporting work. I think if you're going to put in a system, and if you can leverage an existing enterprise application, such as some of the other cities have done, then your headcount needs maybe a little bit less. We stood up a full separate application, and it did require staff. That staff has been reduced now that the application's been up and running, and we understand how to manage it and maintain it. But yeah, I think you have to look at additional hires for managing the processes. The goal is that maybe you're able to take the need of having some of these people in some of the other departments and achieve an overall city benefit by bringing and centralizing some of those resources inside of the 3M1 system, as opposed to having them in each of the different departments.
Great, thank you. Renee?
Yeah, when the city of Sacramento initiated our 311 program, we had the Gartner group come in and do a upfront study on an analysis of what we needed and what our call center should look like. And in that diagram, or the org chart that they had created, there were a number of positions. But when we started, it was thought that we'll just start with the minimum amount and we'll grow. And we found that was a bad idea because we were never able to grow. That kind of general, stereotypical civil service, that if you can do with what you're doing, with what you have, then clearly you don't need more. And so we have been, trying to manage the knowledge base and do the reporting and all this without as much staff as should have been done. So my recommendation for an organization that is implementing something is not to try to be too small. As Andy said, if you end up with too many, maybe you can, pare that down, as you master what you're doing. But it is a new, or for us, we started, we took on a very small entity within the city of Sacramento. It was just a 24-hour after-hours service, and kind of built it into our call center. And it was, we ended up being a little bit leaner than we might have. And so yes, I would say we have one programmer and one analyst to
great
to manage.
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, that's it. So just
okay. So panelists, we're starting to run out of time, but we have one more question, so I'm going to go ahead and ask it of the group, and that is, did the introduction of the CRM system either increase or decrease training time? So Rob, increase or decrease?
I would say it increased, because I don't think we had much of formal training out there, and I think when I look back to one of the goals of what we set up, we wanted consistency of answers and whatnot, and I think we've achieved that by the work we've done to document processes. And I think we've saved the city, the impending retirement boom that we see on the horizon. Everything's documented. We've got less business risk.
Great. Andy?
I'll agree. I think you have to plan on increasing some training time to understand both the processes and the systems. But like Rob said, it also protects you from having pigeonholed knowledge in each of the departments.
Okay.
And I would agree with that entirely. It's there is training, but I think prior to having the 311, a number of the people who were answering these calls that we currently take were just somebody who happened to be sitting at the desk, at that particular office. And so it was just kind of, in some cases, just kind of background knowledge, where in the call center, the agents are trained on customer service. You're trained on being, on providing an excellent service, not just a casual answer. So definitely there's additional training, but the documentation of those procedures is significant.
Okay, great. And then lastly, the last question from Stacy Palmer is, how do back office recipients of the like the way work orders look or work now? Are you getting feedback from your back office recipients? Rob?
The only feedback we get is if we don't give them enough information. So we have to follow our own, the process, but otherwise it works. Yeah.
Great. And Andy?
We get some feedback about designing the forms and make sure the forms match their needs. We also have integrated so that the majority of the work orders actually get handled in the department work order system directly. But we do provide our departments feedback in how request forms are built so that they meet their needs. Great.
Renee?
They are very impressed with the consistency of the call centers, not the call centers, with the work orders that are being sent out. It's been very positive.
Great. Well, I think this has been a great discussion. Panelists, I really want to thank you so much for your insights and sharing today for all of the people who joined our call. So thank you to everybody. Thank you also for our participants for joining us and for your great questions. This was a great list of questions. Please join us for our next Best Practice Sharing webinar on Wednesday, October 31st at 10 a.m. Central Time, and you can come in costume if you'd like. And visit us on LinkedIn to find the slides from today's webinar and look up the 311 Synergy group there. If you haven't joined LinkedIn, we encourage you to do so. And please plan on joining us in Tampa in April. So I'd like to thank you all panelists, Rob and Andy and Renee and Rose, for a delightful discussion. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.